Gatsby, even though I don't want to get involved in the bootlegging industry, would you mind telling me a little about it?
Oh, it's something I can tell you all about. Nick, because it's the 1920s, the 18th Amendment is in place. It says that the sale of alcohol is illegal. This is because of the fact that prior to this, alcohol was becoming a very big problem in the cities. This was because people were getting drunk and going to work, then getting drunk and going home. Literally hitting the bars every single day. Full wages would be spent at the bars, and certain women activist groups and religious groups were not taking this anymore. Because there is such a high demand for alcohol, there's a very big black market for it. A lot of alcohol came across the borders from Mexico and Canada, but I get mine right here in the USA, on the outskirts of the cities. Moonshine is the primary alcohol, because of the very high content of the alcohol. It is almost 100%, and when you can't get a lot of it, people want it very strong. This amendment led to organized crime being started, and the name mafia wasn't even around until bootlegging. Did you know moonshine can make you blind? No, it's true.
So, why was this law put into place specifically?
Well, it was called the temperance movement, and this made people believe that alcohol was the American curse. As early as 1873, the Women's Christian Temperance Union of Ohio called for the abolition and sale of alcohol. They were soon joined by the fight by even a more powerful anti-saloon league, also known as the ASL. This was founded in 1893 also in Ohio, but later expanded to a national organization. Through speeches, advertisements, and public demonstrations at saloons and bars, Prohibition activists attempted to convince people that eliminating alcohol from society would eliminate poverty, social vices such as immoral behavior, and physical violence.
How's it made?
Well, this is something I can show you better than tell you.
It was the nectar of outlaws. Clear, fresh corn whiskey that's 50% alcohol. And centuries later, it still has a potent appeal. In Virginia, they still make this whiskey the traditional way, allowing corn to germinate in a process called malting. They mix a small amount of the malted kernels with regular corn in a big tank, then funnel the mix into a mill. Inside this mill, automated hammers grind the mix to a cornmeal consistency. This frees some of the starch and exposes it to enzymes from the malted kernels. Those enzymes convert the starch to sugar. They'll use some of this ground corn to make a big batch of yeast. They add it to water in a tank and boil it until it becomes a thick soup. Once it reaches the desired consistency, they allow it to cool to room temperature. They add yeast and blow air into the mix to help the yeast grow, making this one big batch of liquid yeast. In another tank, a ton of corn is being blended with water and boiled. This breaks down more of the starch, converting it to sugar. Once cooled, they pump the mix and the liquefied yeast into the fermentation tank. Over a period of 4 days, the yeast turns the sugar to alcohol. The process also generates carbon dioxide, which is vented into the atmosphere. Every so often, the brewmaster scoops up some liquid and scrutinizes it. If it looks too thick, the conversion of sugar to alcohol is not yet complete. But when the viscosity is just right, they pump the batch into a big copper still. It's just like the type used to make moonshine in the backwoods centuries ago. They heat it to 82 degrees Celsius. At that temperature, alcohol will boil, but water will not. As the alcohol boils off the mix, it's recovered through a condenser. The recovered liquid is 80% alcohol. Talk about a stiff drink. So they add water to cut it down to about 50%, and then it's ready to bottle. To make a darker whiskey, They steep it with what looks like a big tea bag. It's actually wood chips wrapped in cheesecloth. The whiskey absorbs flavor and color from the wood over a period of about 2 months. They allow the whiskey to age for 2 years in a hot room. The heat causes the whiskey to expand, causing it to absorb the flavor of the wood. After the whiskey has aged, they adjust the alcohol content by adding a little water. The water is always softened and filtered to remove minerals that could affect the whiskey's taste.
That's good moonshine. I'll give this to Mr. Wolfshire to distribute through town.